Hey guys, and I want to welcome you all back to another Dragon Ball Legends video. My name is D-Free, and for today's video, we have Orange Piccolo. So, I'm not going to be showcasing him in this, but stay tuned for a showcase video with him because I literally have not played a match with him yet because I told the game I will do one final rotation. And this game, you know this game's a troll, and it clearly listens, man. Either that or Toshi's got my tablet bugged or something because I'm on the free summon, which, you know, is the literal last step. I was like, okay, I'm done. This is my last rotation. I'm gonna do the free summon one more time until I get there, and that's it. And so on the free summon, look at me hitting my desk and it's messing up. Oh, it's not doing it now. Anyway, on my last summon, this guy pops up, dude. And I was like, are you kidding me? You know what it is? You gotta pull the plug faster. You gotta be like, game, this is my first rotation. Literally still have the first set, the second summon, all that stuff that you just don't have anymore after the first rotation. Game, I'm only doing one multi. So we do have him. Stay tuned for a video. I'll check him out on Regen because I feel like movies is when you're going to see more often from a lot of people because obviously Beast, and you know your boy got to come back into a revisited special beam cannon type of team, so stay tuned. So Piccolo, in related news, is apparently kind of controversial. So I didn't really know this, but it's because I don't really see Piccolo a ton. You run into the Gammas more because they're on separate banners, so it just means more people went for the Gammas. And also going for the Gammas means you get Cell Max. It's just probably the better banner to go for. But that being said, you don't really see him a ton. I've only versed him like 3 or 4 times. Like, I don't really see him a ton. So a lot of people are saying that he's not great. And we're going to talk about that for today's video because I told you guys I would cover that. So I hope you guys enjoy and hit that thumbs up and subscribe. And let me know in the comments, how do you feel about Piccolo? Do you have him? Have you played with him? Or has it only been versus him? Have you been unimpressed when you're versus him, etc.? And since I just got him, I haven't played with him. So I'll have to reserve my own level of analysis on that front for when I actually do get the opportunity to play with him, like I did with Goku and Frieza's video. You remember that video where we had the same topic for Goku and Frieza pre-buff, and the funny thing about that was I did this type of video talking about how the community feels about them, and that was before they announced a buff. And for the record, we're going to talk about Piccolo and a potential buff and stuff like that and things I think people need to know. And so I tweeted out, or I sent out, I didn't tweet this one this time, I sent out on the community page for YouTube, I said a lot of talk about Orange Piccolo needing a buff, so I'll do a video on it. That's what this video is. And I asked, how do you feel about him, and do you think that he needs one? And I said, spoiler in parentheses, they said Goku and Frieza was a one-time exception. I wouldn't hold out hope for a buff. Now, let me kind of elaborate. Forgive me, I tried to dig up the actual news post about this in-game, but I can't find it. It might have been removed. But the Twitter page is still here, and basically, long story short, they put out in this notice when they buffed Goku and Frieza, they said, therefore, the decision has been made to take exceptional action in this singular instance. So let me just make note of the fact that they put that in red and further underlined it, okay? To directly buff this character instead of using unique equipment or other means to strengthen it, like a Zenkai. So, to reiterate, what this means is Goku and Frieza were an exception to the rule. The rule is they don't do balance changes anymore. We would like for them to do that, but if you understand anything about where this game was back then, the reason why balance changes stopped. This is not conjecture, this is not hearsay, this is literal fact. The reason why balance changes stopped is because it was not profitable for the amount of work it took. It's just that simple. Other games will balance change and all that stuff, and that's fine, but that's why they stopped doing balance changes and why they don't do them. And instead, you know it's that because what they did was immediately after that, make the most pay-to-win intensive version of a balance change a game could ever think of. So what they did was they made 21,000, 22,000 Chrono Crystals on average to Zenkai 7 characters to then pay for your quote-unquote balance change, right? They further lessened that as time went on, but the reason why these don't happen is because they require them to rework the entire character and do all that back-end coding stuff, and then from there, there's basically putting resources here, and it's not profitable, right? Because what happens is people, when they made this change, I don't imagine too many more people than like the norm went out of their way to summon for this character. You can pretty much tell because the sensor tower data for the sales for the game really didn't change. So they didn't make this change for a monetary reason, which I know is one reason why people were saying, oh yeah, they did this for money, this and that, because maybe Goku and Frieza weren't hype enough or they weren't selling enough. That's not what happened. The reason why this character got a change was because they weren't performing up to their internal standards. Because you have to understand, when it comes to characters in this game, every single one, there is 3 perspectives. There's the general player's perspective, there's the high-end player perspective, and then there's the developer's perspective. And what I mean by high-end is your guys that are going to max out every character at 14 stars, this and that, and they're going to play in the top 50 ranks and this and that. You know what I'm saying? And then there's your average player, which is like me. I'm not doing that. Like, I'm one of the main, like, I'm probably size-wise the biggest YouTuber that doesn't push characters and limit breaks like that. I just don't. I look at all my contemporaries and stuff like that. They typically have their character. This is not a knock, a criticism, or anything. Every time I mention anybody else, everybody thinks it's a shot. It's not. But they typically have all their characters at red stars, 14 star, whatever. And that's fine. But what that does is it introduces a different perspective. That's why I said there's 3 perspectives. There's the high end, the average, and then the dev. And then the funny thing is, this situation is the one time out of several times where all of those circumstances aligned, right? Because, and I think that Piccolo may be a victim of this, but oftentimes why characters don't get buffed or things like that, other than the fact that, you know, to buff a character, they need an equip or something really, really strong, right? They're not doing balance changes. I already talked about that. So for the record, they are not going to give Piccolo a balance change. It's just not on the table. It's not on the cards. And I saw my boy Dokkan Asset saying, keep balance. They're not. It's not happening. They just do not plan to do that. This was the exception to the rule. This is not the norm. They are not doing this again. It's also very different than Gogeta Super Saiyan 4. And the reason why, even though I made a video comparing it, but the reason why it's different from that, and even if you think Piccolo is underperforming similar to Goku and Frieza was, is because they don't think so. It's just that simple. Because they don't think so. Because you'll have different perspectives. So what that means is that the devs thought Goku and Frieza were underperforming because they have their own back-end metrics, and oftentimes this is where things have always been out of whack, is that we will say something is wrong with the character, but their metrics show otherwise. Players are using X character. Players are using this team that they want you to use, this and that, because you have to consider the entire player base, right? Not just the 2% of the player base that's on YouTube, right? Things like that, which is, it's probably less than 10 for sure. If you're wondering, the community is far reaching outside of YouTube and Reddit and Discord, right? So anyway, so that's just kind of how things are. So Piccolo is an odd situation because he's not going to get a buff. He's just not. But the funny thing is, what do we want as a player base? Because here's the deal. Goku and Frieza, they got a massive over-tuning, by the way. I think they got way better than they should have been. Now, there's a chance. I wish I could say more direct stuff. I legally can't. But there's a chance that Goku and Frieza, the balancing for them wasn't correct, right? That's all I can really kind of say, and that they wanted them to be better than they were. So that's also, it maybe potentially was an increased incentive to buff the character. Anyway, moving on. So that being said, being the extreme outlier, right? It's not as simple as we would think as, oh, an anniversary headliner that's underperforming or the community thinks isn't as good. It's not that simple, right? So what do the players want, right? Do you want a balanced character? Because here's the simple reality of a balanced character in this game. Sorry if you're just staring at the screen. I'm going on a tangent. The simple reality of a balanced character in this game is that most of them are considered mid. Those are the same characters. The characters that are actually balanced in this game are the same ones everyone complains are mid. Yeah, think about that. Seriously, that's the reality. The characters everybody thinks are mid are the ones that are actually balanced, because our perception of balance is skewed because of the top end characters and top end players, right? You see what I'm saying? So like, if they drop a character that's solid, right, and isn't power creeping the previous release, that should be applauded, not downvoted. But the reason why it is because we need shakeup at the top. We need the meta to evolve, right? That's the dichotomy and the situation that they're in with this game, and the everlasting battle of balance, and the fact that balance isn't a linear thing. It changes from character to team to player. It's a different scale. So the characters we say are mid are typically the ones that should be considered balanced. And so if we're balancing characters, and this is what happened with Goku and Frieza, they went from being quote-unquote mid to being balanced around the top-end characters in the game, and now we're probably the top 1 character in the game, top 2, top 3. They're interchangeable with Ultras now. Then that's where we are now. And so Piccolo pops in as the following product after that, and he's more so similar to Goku and Frieza before the buff than after the buff. Is that really a problem? Is it really a problem if a character's top 10-ish? Top 8, top 10? It's not really, with 4 or 5 Ultras in there. Is that really a problem? No, it's not. It's not a problem, but it is. That's the thing. It's not, but it is, because again, these Ultras, everything always comes back to the power level, the power creep that Beast Gohan and these Ultras introduced, and that they shot them way off the charts. And so nothing else compares. And when nothing compares, people are upset. And so the characters that are good are mid. They're just not great. They're just good, but they're mid. You see what I'm saying? So it's weird, because I feel like Piccolo's where that is. And again, Goku and Frieza were there too. They were also a top 10 character. They were probably like no worse than like 6th or 7th in the game. They were really good pre-buff, but they got a buff and got way overtuned. And for the record, the buff is in conjunction with the community, but it's not because the players complained about it. It is because the devs agreed. They weren't satisfied with Goku and Frieza. It's not as simple as the players complained, so they fixed it. It's the devs, and this is, again, not conjecture. This is not hearsay. This is literal fact that I'm telling you. This is why these things are happening, right? I can't, like I said, I can't go crazy in detail, but that's kind of it. So with that being said, Piccolo won't get a buff. Okay, you never want to say never, but they outline all that stuff. It's a one-time thing. Never say never, but likelihood extremely low. Maybe people can complain about it enough. But again, I don't have opinions on Piccolo's performance, because from what I've seen, he just is what he is. And also, let's go and jump into the comments. Also, I think revival characters outside of Revival Gohan from the 3-year always get treated that way, by the way. And I think there's a comment alluding to that, so we'll talk about it. I honestly think he's fine. He's not broken as other characters, but he is still very powerful when he revives. I think his only problem is the unique gauge. It fills only once instead of multiple times. Feels like his gauge buff could do more, but he's really good and fun to use. For an anniversary character, he's underwhelming. So let's talk about that briefly. Relative to the field of anniversary releases, sure. But that's only because anniversary releases, aside from Goku and Frieza pre-buff, and actually no. Actually no. Out of 5 anniversaries, I don't remember exactly what was happening with MUI last year. Out of 5 anniversaries, at least considering just part 1, right? I think at least 3 of them are debatable. The only ones that aren't debatable are the 2 Vegetos, which is the first 2, where it's like, you know, these other characters are underwhelming. I didn't think the other characters were underwhelming last year. Like Super Saiyan, is Piccolo Super Saiyan 3 Goku equivalent as opposed to like where Goku was last year, right? Is Goku this time last year better than Piccolo today? Or are they pretty equivalent? Probably pretty equivalent, right? Was Goku underwhelming last year at this time? I don't think so. I don't know. Not really if you have him high star. He's really not. He's right there where he needs to be. Last thing we need is a super broken revival unit. He gives non-cancelable support, reduces sub count, literally spawns endless amounts of greens after revival. He does a lot of damage. He's right where he should be. See, this is the thing. Does the player base want Piccolo or characters after Piccolo from here, outside of Vegito Blue or whatever Ultra is popping up, because they're going to be broken? The next LF, do they want like Beast Gohan 2.0 type deal? Like what do we want? Because I think at some point something has to give. I think we have to hit a point where it's okay for a character not to be the best character in the game, right? Because what are we doing from there? And so this also just reverberates back to the Ultra characters, because Ultra skew this. I don't think we should be comparing. Well, you have to. I've said this before. You shouldn't be, but you have to compare the LFs to the Ultras. You just have to, because they comprise the top teams in the game. You have to. Like, your Beast Gohan has to be able to deal with the ultras. Your whoever has to, your 17, whoever, your Piccolo in this case, has to be able to. You shouldn't have to do that in terms of not really like running teams, but like it should be a clear dichotomy between the quality of character, but also do they want this game to just be ultras only on a team? So like we always wanted a new rarity, or I feel like a lot of people did. I didn't really care. But anyway, but I feel like it just created more problems. But it's not boiled simply down to that, because it also is just LF characters like Beast Gohan, and even further back to Zenkais and other characters that were non-LFs like Purple Broly. They've always had issues with balance. But what do we want? He's fine for the most part, but he doesn't tank as well as I hope for post-revival. Have him at 7 stars. Besides that, I think maybe adding some small touches to his unique gauge is all he needs, though only the defense buff post-revival are necessary. So instead of getting a tweak, I don't like I said, I don't think they're gonna do a balance change. They could produce an equip for him. It would take a while to do an equip, by the way. They wouldn't have an equip for Piccolo next week. Like if they didn't plan on having an equip for Piccolo already done, it's gonna take a while. Gogeta got his equip what? 4 or 5 months after, right? It's gonna take a while because it takes time to produce that. Especially if their resources are going elsewhere, which if you haven't noticed, their equips for LFs have disappeared. They're not gone, but they have disappeared because the resources are being tuned elsewhere. Again, not conjecture, not just hearsay. This is literal fact. They're working on other things. One of the things they're working on is producing more characters. Did you notice the insane influx of characters for this anniversary so far? There's been like 8 characters. More than that, right? No, 2, 4... It's 8 to 10, something like that. I don't know. I believe there's some EXs on part 1. But anyway, there's a bunch of characters. So, like, it's going elsewhere. The work is going elsewhere. Orange Piccolo is fine. People just wanted him buffed because he's not overly broken. At least he's good and not a bad unit. I agree. It seems like 10 other people agree. I like if he got buffed since he isn't really on the same level as the other 2 LFs this anniversary. IMO. But I don't see it happening. Now that I think about it, he really needs to survive when he's out of featured boost. Otherwise, he will likely age similarly to Dragon Fist. So that's another thing too. I've said it before. I really do think that the boost system is terrible for the game. It's easily one of the worst things that they've ever added because it creates a false sense of worth for characters. It makes it to where characters seem like they are so much better than they are, and some of these characters, and I think that the average per length is probably like 3 months or something like that. These characters are sitting in there for 3 months or whatever, just appearing better than they are. So when they get kicked off, yeah, it's only 15-20%, whatever it is, in terms of stat increases, but when they get kicked off, you feel it, right? But the point is, by the time they get kicked off after 3-4 months, they've already been power crept. They don't care anymore. Nobody cares anymore because they've been power crept. You see what I'm saying? Like the game's balance is all over the place. So really, if we're being honest, I'm wrong, you're wrong, everybody's wrong if you expect or want to see the game balance characters a certain way, whether it's making Piccolo better, leaving him how he is, and balancing around the field, whatever. Doesn't matter, we're all wrong because the game, they don't know how to balance. Because like I said in the very beginning, there's 3 perspectives. Who are you balancing characters for? Which players? Because it's different. It is different. Example, I've already seen like 2 comments of people saying at higher stars he's better. Well, no crap, right? Every character is better at higher stars. You know what I'm saying? Like, but like most people aren't going to go very heavy. It is what it is. But if you don't go heavy now, you run the risk of 2 things. You run the risk of getting him when he's off of boost, which obviously is going to happen eventually, like we talked about. And you also run the risk of waiting for him to come back. Sometimes characters don't come. Freaking Beast Gohan disappeared for 6 months. So what do? This is part of the reason why my love for the game hasn't dwindled. I'm still extremely passionate about it. But this is part of the reason why I don't take it as seriously as I did. There was a time where I was like other people, and I would push heavy in ranks. I would 14-star or high limit break all but I just don't anymore because I've learned that this is a game. And with that being the case, I don't take it too seriously. I'm here to collect characters and show you guys some fun teams. That's my space. That's it. I mean, I'll do discussions like this, and I'm still very knowledgeable about the game, but like my space in terms of gameplay is that. So yeah, I think he's fairly well. I don't have much of an issue with him when he plays. I'd really be cookie with the revive and strike counter. He's dope, no buff needed, okay? I don't know, I've been using him for a while. I pulled them first day, thankfully third multi, pretty crazy, but pre-transformed. He doesn't feel that strong when he's pre-transformed, but he has a few good traits like the green card to give him the draw speed, and after he transforms and revives, he becomes a beast, like a real powerhouse. The blast armor, I wish. Okay, my man's here left a really long comment. 3 stars, okay. I meant to mention this earlier. I briefly brought it up. All, hear me, all revival characters, there's like 7, get downplayed. Except for 1. All but 1. However, they all get downplayed pre-revive because nobody cares about the pre-revive character. They're almost always bad. I mean, some of them have redeeming factors. Like, I really like Super Saiyan Blue Goku, the way he plays with his main ability pre-revive. I really like Gohan. You want to get that main ability off before you die, right? But the main value in the character is in the revival effect itself. Because it's innately better than endurance, because 2 things are happening. For one, it's a transformation. It spawns a transformation. And secondly, because it does a transformation, it stops the combo entirely. A revival character or an endurance character, just you can just keep going until you're done. You know, you can just kill them in that one combo if you're able to do enough damage, right? So it's one of the premier mechanics in the entire game. So that in and of itself should hold more weight than it does with the players, but players don't give it the same value for whatever reason. That mechanic, regardless of whatever else the characters do, is valuable. Now, obviously, post-revive, when you really have to use the character, they have to be good. I never thought Super Saiyan Blue Goku was good, the blue element one, not the UI one. I never thought that Green Gohan and Piccolo were good. It's because the post-revive isn't good. Orange Piccolo's post-revive is good. But the climate is different because the best characters in the game are ridiculously strong. And somebody commented earlier that he's not as good as the other LFs so far, released anniversary. Again, I think he was pretty equivalent to Goku and Frieza pre-buff. Since they got a buff, I think you can remove them. I don't have any opinions on Piccolo myself, otherwise in terms of like actually playing with him, but I did like Gamma 1 and 2. I think they're really strong. They have the same issue Goku and Frieza had pre-buff, and that's that they can't take a hit. They get decimated. But that's just every character. When you play with them at low stars. I did a video and they got one shot. People were like, oh yeah, you're playing with them at 3 stars. And I'm like, okay. Like, okay. Like, that's how the game is. That's every character. You think I'm surprised if a character can't take at 3 stars? That's just how the game is. So, well, this is also part of the reason why I don't push too heavy in PvP anymore, because I got tired of using my 3, 4, 5, 6-star characters versus a bunch of red, 12, 14-star characters all the time, because it's inaccurate. That's also why I didn't like training mode when it was there and every character was 14-star. I didn't like that either because it was inaccurate. There would be variances if you were actually playing. But I also don't push because it's like, I don't really like dealing with it, I didn't mind anymore when my characters were a similar level, but obviously the game's trying to push you to limit break, and I'm not doing it. I don't care. I barely got my Super Saiyan 4 tag character, I think the 6-star with like Z power. Like I'm like ultra out of it. But part of the reason why is the variance of character. So yeah, obviously your 3-star character is going to struggle defensively. It is what it is. But since that is what it is, do you either just say it is what it is, or do you not consider it? I don't know. Again, who are you balancing for? Are you balancing for your top 1%? Which maybe they are. And that top 1% is your top 1% of spenders. Not players, spenders. But here's the fun fact. Top 1% of spenders isn't automatically a linear thing to being top 1% in players. Because there is skill, no matter how much people want to deny it or this and that. You can't just take, you can beat up on scrubs. You can't just take the best characters versus the best players at equivalent star levels and run over them. You can't. They're going to beat you if they're better. So, yeah, it's a very different thing. There are also whales that like to 14-star other characters and then don't touch PvP. Yeah, that demographic exists too. So who are you balancing for? Because if that's the case, if those players don't touch PvP, well, then they don't give a damn about how good the characters are. because they're good enough to push through any PvE content, especially with all the PvE content having specific bonuses for all the new characters to be good there. They're going to be like the tower modes and stuff like that. All your new characters are always going to be good there. They don't care. So, I don't know. I think that if Goku Frieza got buffed, then it should be the same for Piccolo. Maybe not as ridiculous, but as an anniversary LF character, he shouldn't have a stigma against him. So, I think it's a good time to mention something. Like I said, I can't really mention things because NDAs. I have an NDA. I can't say what I literally know. But here's a nugget. It takes a while. I mentioned this earlier. It takes a while to balance change a character. It takes a while to reprogram a character. So here's food for thought. If they balance changed Goku and Frieza, what? A week later, 2 weeks later, something like that? Do you think that they had people working overtime to rush and fix them, or do you think they already had that plan? It sounds like the latter is more likely, right? Because they still have to have other people developing other content, right? Right? So what that means is that they already planned for a buff, doesn't it? Because that's what that sounds like. It's food for thought. So with that being said, I mean, unless one's announced soon for Piccolo, it just ain't happening. And if it's not happening, then he's not getting anything until he gets an equip. Unless he gets the Zenkai early. You know, it is what it is. And by the way, Zenkais also take a while to produce. They don't just decide to have a Zenkai next week and have it out. I'm sure they sometimes do with the ones that like barely, looking at you, Green Jiren, where they don't do anything. those ones are hilarious. They don't do a damn thing to the kit. They slap on some ultra generic unique ability. Those ones are hilarious. But this is the simple reality for them. I'm so happy with him right now. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Have him at 6 stars on the movie team with Beast, Gohans, and Gammas. I have him in the Gamma Zenkai buff plus Pan on the bench for health. The team is like immortal. Gammas are constantly healing. Beast will have endurance if someone gets rushed, and Piccolo's revive. Some of the most fun I've had in the game. Nice. I'm happy to hear that, man. Community needs to stop hating on Piccolo. He's amazing. I'm happy somebody's enjoying him. No reason to buff him, so I'm totally on board with him getting a buff. Wait, no reason to not buff him. Well, the reason is that's not what aligns with most of the player base. So this is another thing too, is that, like I said, I mentioned earlier how like this is like a super small demographic of player base, especially in just the English speaking language. This game has so many more players that you've never heard of. So many people you will never interact with. In multiple languages and regions and countries and all that stuff. So this doesn't align with everything. It has to align with everything to get a buff, especially a balance change buff, because those are, again, the extreme of the extreme of the extreme of the extreme times 10, because they're so far removed from what they want to do with this game. They don't want to do that. And another reason why they don't want to buff Piccolo is because they do not want to set a precedent. Oh my god, this is something that already happened with Goku and Frieza, despite the fact that they laid it out as clear as they can. This is a one-time thing. They laid it out here, and you still have people thinking that they're going to get a buff. They laid it out as clear as you possibly can. They told you in your face they're not doing it again. And we have people wanting a buff for them, calling for a buff for them, calling for them to keep... This is outside of what they have planned for the game. So that's the reason. Buffing would also make the community even happier about this anniversary, so it would be more of a free publicity for the game. I don't disagree with that. So no matter how many subsections there are for the player base and for the game and balancing for who, it doesn't matter. I think if the character gets better, 99% of players would get happier. I'm not making that argument. I think everybody would be happier if they got better, for the most part. There are going to be your sticklers that are like, they didn't need a buff. I'm mad about it. But I think most players would. But I try to be real with you guys. I try not to like kiss no asses or anything. I try to be real and honest. I try to be as honest as I can be. I think people underestimate all revival characters. Yeah, this is the comment I was talking about earlier, especially since the health is a full heal. That's also kind of uncommon for an LF or for a revive to come back with full. They come back with half or 3/4. Full heal is pretty uncommon. I have to go back and look at him, but I'm sure there's like less than 3. He's fine. I'm getting used to him while he's orange. I have had a bit of difficulty trying to land the green card, but he is pretty good. A buff would be like resisting more damage, but that could be that I have him low in stars. Unique gauge is pretty good, stopping the enemy. I like that. Yeah, it's just going to be a star-based thing. Which, by the way, if the issue is a star-based issue, then that means the character is designed as intentionally. If the character is not doing enough damage or tanking well enough, and the issue is stars, then that means that the game is working as intended. Because at the end of the day, their goal is to make you summon. And their goal is to make you dry up your crystals and pressure you into buying crystals. That's their goal. That's every gacha game's goal. So if a character's issue is star related, then that's as intended. And the reason why multi-Z power exists in a free capacity is because they know that by the time you get your character up to a good star level, that character will have already been power crept. Like I said, I just got my Goku and Vegeta up, and they're already powered. They're nowhere near as good as they were. It's not close either. So, like, it is what it is. Revive characters tend to be underrated for some reason. People said the same thing about Goku, even though his blue card can one-shot many characters. You talking about green Goku? UI Goku? Probably. He was the last revive, so probably. I'm terrified if he's talking about the blue Goku. But I don't disagree. A very strong plat for him would go a long way. So I don't know if he gets his own like Orange Piccolo exclusive unique, but a movie's unique equip is probably a lot easier and quicker to do. That just does like really strong stat increases for what? Green movies characters, green melee movies characters. You know what I'm saying? Like something super specific. I think he needs a defensive plat. Yeah, he's a revival character, but having 50% damage cut is terrible. They did him dirty, and if his gauge limited once, he could have been good, and he deserved to be buffed because he's one of the hypest characters we got this year. He's anti-character too. He has 50% pre-revive, 50% post. He has 65. Okay, I guess he has more cut than this guy is realizing. The Boo duo needs a buff more. That's a fun one. My guy Rai is always asking about buffs for this character. Like all the time. Oh, like several times a week. And I get it. He loves Super Saiyan 3. This is probably his favorite character in the game. But I digress. The only difference is that Piccolo is an anniversary character. That's it. If you think that character needs a buff, they definitely need it more than Piccolo does. Because unlike Piccolo, they're not in top 10 range, right? They're in top 20 range, but they're not top 10. I feel like he's not made to be that guy on a team, more like a third or second option on the team. I think that's probably also part of the case. They probably built him with Kid Buu in mind. And if you look at his kit, he gives a crap ton of green cards, and Kid Buu is an auto-win character with the green card. So I think people aren't considering that too. And probably because they're using him on movies. I think he might have been designed with Regen and Kid Buu in mind. Because Kid Buu goes insane with Piccolo. Like, Kid Buu is ridiculous with Piccolo. So, yeah. Really enjoyed him. I don't think it's necessary, to be honest. Gammas are better. If anything, they need an Android support. They do need that. Hopefully, Purple 17 is that. Okay. Sorry about that. I got a text. He feels underwhelming. There's something missing in his kit, but I still don't know what it is. His kit is lacking synergy or a certain wholeness to it. That might be, again, that he's probably designed to run with Kid Buu. Pre-revive, his main ability is good, but doesn't offer too much beyond that. Post-revive, I feel as if he has one opportunity to look good, which is when his gauge activates. After that, he's just a generic unit. If I had to make one change, I understand that they will not buff Piccolo. I wish his gauge would reset similar to Broly, or even one activation per switch in, just to retain the disruption abilities after the first activation. Yeah, so a lot of people are saying that the gauge is the problem. I have to play with him. But I'll take you guys' word for it. If not getting the gauge more than once is a big deal, and it wouldn't be oppressive, then I do think they should add another usage to it. But that wouldn't come unless they did a balance change, a Zenkai, or a Platinum equip, which, unless they have any of those three things planned, it's going to take a while. Again, as evidenced by Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. He doesn't deserve a buff. Neither did Goku Frieza. They were already top 5 without the buff. It was a dumb thing to buff them. More units needed the buff, like the Buu duo. So this is more of a sensible take, but it's kind of in line with what I've said in that Goku and Frieza were good. They were squishy. That could be a star issue, though. Their Rising Rush effect, which is their main selling point, could have been better. And if they had literally just added a little bit more damage cut and changed their Rising Rush effect to where it activates on cover changes or what it nullifies, right, they would have been fine. But no, they decided to overtune the character. They made changes to everything. Freaking 3 cards Frieza's getting and this and that, blah, 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 the vanish. There's so much stuff added. It's legit. It was legit a Zenkai, but better than a Zenkai. It was like a Zenkai 2 that they gave that character. And mind you, they will get a Zenkai eventually, and they'll be insane when they get it. So, like, Goku and Frieza got an overtuning. They got more meaningful stuff. I saw a comment about this, a tweet about this, I'm not sure from who, and it was that they got more meaningful stuff added to their kit than Purple UI did, and he got a full-on Zenkai, and theirs is just better. Like, it is. It's just better. Obviously, the character is better, but the amount of things added, right? Basically as good as Revival UI, who isn't that good, but decent. At least he needs an equip. Revive UI is pretty decent, probably in that top 20 range. So that's probably a bit of an undersell, because at least he's on boost while Goku isn't. Unfortunately, I don't read Spanish, unfortunately. My girl's not here, so I can't. I guess he's saying he has no defense. I'd have to pull up a translate, but I'm not going to be able to do that, so sorry, man. I appreciate you. Really going to read a couple more because I'm going to lose my breath. Oh, we're almost done. Okay. Mixed feelings. I say do it just because I have him. Know what to add. IDK. I don't go deep into characters like that. I just watch breakdowns and plays. That's fair. He's solid, but he's not necessary for movies at all, despite being their best green. You should only summon if you're main Super Warrior or Regen, otherwise his banner is an easy skip. He's top 10 for sure, but incredibly underwhelming compared to his post-buff Goku and Frieza and the Gammas. His main issue is the pre-transformation and defense post. His first form is good at spawning greens and is completely and totally worthless in every other aspect. Orange Piccolo is great, but he's not good enough defensively to comfortably tank hits to fill the gauge, meaning he'll be close to dead by the time he's at full potential. This guy, I don't know why they decide to slap these defense gauges on these melee characters. Piccolo should just be a defense type. It's the same thing they did with Ultra Broly. I always confuse him for a defense type because he plays like one, but he's a melee. And the reason why well, here's the reason why. It's so they do more damage. Because the stat spread is different. The graph is different for which type your character is. It's going to skew more a certain way. And defense types are going to typically have less offense in favor of more defense. But in this case, if you have a defense gauge, you probably need it. Or you need some otherworldly level of cut. And the problem with getting 60 to 65 cut or whatever characters are getting, that's like better than the norm. Yeah, but characters nowadays are putting on 150% damage increases. And the offense is always higher than the defense anyway. So like, what is that supposed to do? This is why the arts power debuffs are there. I assume Piccolo has it, but I'm not sure. I haven't beaten Orange Piccolo yet. Okay, he's fine. He's mid, even on boost. Could have been better, it seems. Feels like Gogeta 4 on release. Oh, I responded to this when I saw it. I asked in what way. No, he doesn't. That he's mid and needs a buff. This is not descriptive enough. I kind of get the idea, but I just don't think this is true. This is just too generic of a reply for me to really elaborate. But Gogeta 4... So Gogeta 4 on release couldn't do the damage. But if anybody tells you anything else was wrong with him, they're wrong. If anybody tells you anything else was wrong with that guy's kit, they're wrong. He had every other tool you needed to be a good character in the game. He just didn't do enough damage. He tanked like an MFer. He was neutral on those tanks. He had the one-time extra cut on entry. He had the utility with the green card doing destroy cards and combo starter with nullify. He had blast armor. He drew the extra blue card. His ult hit like a truck. If anybody tells you anything else other than he just didn't have enough damage inflicted buffs, they're wrong. I mean, I could be forgetting something, but that's basically it, right? So I don't know if that's Piccolo's situation. They're gonna give him a plat like Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. I think people forget that it didn't pop up instantly. This came in like October. This equipped for Gogeta came in like something like October, dude. It came a while later. And the boost system didn't exist back then, by the way. Goku and Frieza didn't need a buff, and neither does Piccolo. I feel people are so judgmental right now because one, insert anime character's name for a player for an anime guild shows up like every other match running Goku and Frieza were lag and PV fishing, and that makes you question why you're not running Kid Buu with Goku and Frieza instead of the new units. And two, I don't know what he means by that. I don't really. I understand the first part, but this whole first point is just kind of like, okay, I don't really get it. I'm being honest, I don't get it. Right now, the meta has more powerful purples running around in every match, in every other match or whatever. Goku Frieza, Gogeta Blue, LFUI. Yeah, that's fair. And 3, Goku and Frieza got a giant buff because they weren't oppressive enough for the player base, and now they want every unit to be like that. Again, a common misconception that's going to happen with the Goku and Frieza thing is, yes, they were aligned. The player base, look, I mentioned the multiple things were aligned in thinking that this character needed a buff. But the main determining factor isn't the player base. It's how is the character performing versus dev expectation. And the turnaround time for that is not a quick one. Put 2 and 2 together. All right, moving on. Gamma 1 and 2 are fine. You don't see people complaining about them or hoping for a buff. The flat out truth is that unless you're using a 14-star Piccolo or fighting one, he doesn't do as much compared to the other 2 LFs you released with. You could even make arguments that transforming Jiren performs better than Piccolo pre and post transformation. So yeah, they probably omit things from Piccolo's kit that would make him better because of the sheer value of the revive effect. This is something I think is just like habitually ignored that I don't really understand. I get that the character needs to be good, but you can't look at them like a regular character. The reason why there's like a handful of these characters in the game is because that effect is oppressive as shit. That effect is ridiculously strong. It's legit on the short list of best effects in the entire game. So you can't just omit that effect from your validation of the character and say, oh yeah, this character does this and that. Yeah, he has revive, but post revive, he doesn't. Okay, I get that the post revive needs to be good, but we cannot ignore the revive itself. It's a valuable effect to have. In fact, it's a rising rush deterrent in a lot of cases. Like, you can't just ignore that effect itself. That effect itself holds a lot of weight. At least it should hold more weight than it does in these breakdowns of the character. But I do agree with a lot of what he's saying here. To be fair, I haven't used the gammas enough to really agree with that part of it. But yeah, the meta also has multiple strong yellows, but people rank a purple in top 3 best units and Ultra Gogeta Blue in top 6, still above Piccolo, that you see in outright every match. So I don't really, I mean, yeah, the color thing was true, but I don't put much weight in this anyway. Because like that's just how the game is too. Like there's always going to be strong characters of every color. Every color has good representation. I mean, you got like is Beast Gohan not good all of a sudden? Who else is in that blue sphere? Can't think of it right now. But like, is any other blue character not good just because Rose exists? Is Rose not good because 3 of the top characters in the game are purple? Like, those characters not good because Kid Buu is like arguably the best character. So like the color thing, that comes down to team composition. That's just how the game is. You can't. No character is always gonna have like a clear cut. This is why like light typing just doesn't exist. That's why Shell is always really strong when he gets buffed. The few things they done right with Piccolo is his revive damage and giving greens to Kid Buu. Somebody mentioned Kid Buu. Our first comment on Kid Buu. That's literally all the value you get with this unit. His defense is downright horrible and his damage is decent at best. He just tries to do everything at once and fails in the process. Like his gauge is only useful once, and his type neutrality is based off the opponent wants you to be type neutral once. Resets after you switch out, I guess. That's decent. More here. And should I mention that it's actually just type neutrality on defense and it activates for 5 counts. This unit genuinely gives me massive DF vibes. Dragon Fist? Is that Dragon Fist? Gotta be, right? I agree with most of what he's saying here. But I also, like, Dragon Fist was really good. Dragon Fist was really good. I gotta go back and look at the meta, but he was probably top 5, right? When he released, he was top 5. Gotta be somewhere in that range. At least top 6, 7 at worst. That character was really good. At least I thought so. What makes this worse is that he goes neutral defensively when someone uses cards, so the opponent literally could just strike, cancel that, go for a card after Piccolo's neutral defense goes away, which makes no sense since he won't tank. Why does he go neutral defensively when the card is landed instead of used? He has defensive neutrality on hit as opposed to on activation. Interesting. I'll confirm that in my own video. This was a longer video than I intended, but there's a lot that I kind of wanted to say about this, because also I haven't really covered much Piccolo content on the channel because I didn't have him. But now that we do, I'll be able to do some content for him. So what do you guys think about Piccolo and some of the things I mentioned in this video and stuff like that? Let me know. Hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in the next. My voice is dead. I'm not like, if you got the vibe I was upset or anything in this video, just being passionate. That's all. Just passionate about the game. All right, guys, have an awesome day, and I'll see you in the next one.